Okay, this is Malika von Meister again, part 2. So Rama and Tara on BBS Radio on the radio shows, and retired Naval Commander Mark Huber, who were friends with the King of Swords, who is the code name for in the New Age movement for a director of Secret Service. They claim he's head of Secret Service, but he's actually in charge of the Black Ops and Secret Service that prevents the president from bringing global peace. All the way to hostage situations. He is head of the dark government, head of the reptilian underground regime. And so is Swami Chivalasananda, head of the dark cabal. They both are. They're both heads of the underground reptilian regime, the reptilian war machine that controls the black ops and the dark cabal. When they're arrested, and the creator appeared to humanity last August in 2020 and told humanity to arrest the first 2 antichrists and take me to Agartha. Then we'll have the new earth and the infinite abundance of heaven. When they were both arrested, they're the backbone of the dark cabal. So we have peace, and that's all that it takes. Even with the number of people on the planet. Okay, so I didn't realize he was the Antichrist because he was presented as being a white knight and having access to the galactic community. And 42 levels of security clearance above the U.S. president. That's how they presented him in public. Mark Huber was doing radio shows, I think on Coast to Coast, and he ended up in the VA hospital with a needle in his neck by a nurse that paralyzed him from the neck down. And I felt at that time, this was about 10 years ago, that the King of Swords had taken him out. I don't know what happened to him after then. But, my conscious awareness was in and out. Otherwise, if obviously I knew the King of Swords was the Antichrist and was a dark hat, I wouldn't have had anything to do with him. So I wasn't fully conscious because of how I wasn't fully conscious of how dark he was. So I called Rama up on the phone and asked him if he would ask King of Swords if he would take me into Agartha for cosmic peace. And I got a couple of responses back from the King of Swords, which had nothing to do really with Agartha. And I still hoped that he would do it. He blacklisted me and very physically was harassing me and abducting me since the time I spoke to Rama. So I got on his blacklist, and I don't know how he and Swami Chidalasananda came together, but they worked together with an extraordinarily high degree of covert and galactic harassment. Some dark ETs told me that I was under siege. And I had lasers, all kinds of directed energy weapons, microwave, pinpoints of light, different colored light on my walls. They moved agents, 2 agents bought the house next door and put 10 gang stalkers downstairs, and there were numerous factions that moved in, but they were attacking my pets and breaking into my place through Georgia Fief and whatever other means, and gang stalkers, and at some point they murdered my pets with arsenic. Every single one of the initial ones. So I started out with 18 and I meant to have 10, but I didn't know how to tell the difference between males and females. So I ended up with 18, but I had a 750 square foot garage. And there are, the breeders, unfortunately, because I don't agree with this, put 1 to 200 rabbits in a single car garage. And I'm not into putting them into cages. They need to have rented the house with something to hide in and a litter box. They're the most beautiful creatures. They anchor the energy of joy, and I'm also head of the animal kingdom. And I agreed to be an advocate for the animal kingdom back in the 2000s when I was living in Iowa. So that's how I connected to the King of Swords through Rama and Tara. And he slandered me to Billy Woodward, or Colonel Billy Woodward, who's in Agarthan, who was born in Agartha and was in the U.S. military, and they took him back down into Agartha so that Billy would not help me get into Agartha and to prevent first contact. And the covert harassment escalated. The initial 18 rabbits were murdered with arsenic, which is heavily heartbreaking. I put the divine plan together in that house. It was anointed by the Creator as the house of God. I had a couple of dreams of a nuclear holocaust and a radioactive desolate planet back in the 90s while living in Swami Chindralasananda's spider's nest. And I prayed to avert it. And the Creator told me that the house and the dreams, both dreams that I had a rectangular wooden structure on it, and I astral traveled in and out of the structure, not knowing what was going on at all. The Creator told me that the house in Colorado, if all else went down, would be the only remaining structure on the planet. Well, the King of Swords and Swami Chindralasananda were their black ops, their gang stalkers and assassins, and there are different factions in the military. I took the house down and destroyed the house, murdered my pets, about 75 of them, and clipped the phone line out to the pole, busted the lock on my front door, as I've mentioned in the other video, took my computer out, deleted a couple of websites, flooded my house. They broke in daily. Whenever I left to go to the store, they broke in daily, and they murdered them. They had some kind of electromagnetic pulse weapons. Also, there was reptilian war technology that made it a very, very, very loud ring in my garage. And later in 2013, these pulse weapons were shooting my pets down. And my sponsor at the time, Art Kelly, would be on the phone, and so would a good friend of mine, one of the 13 Kung Fu grandmasters on the planet, Ron Fugiel, and they both got compromised. But they heard the rustling of my pets in the background when these pulse weapons attacked them and would cause them to run around like a herd. And the one that got attacked by the pulse beam would fly up into the air several feet and land down, and sometimes they would die. And so there's a combination of that, and then breaking in, still murdering them with other means. I would come home to find a couple dead, and just laying dead. I think they also stole them and they ate them for dinner because I smelled it in the evening times. So this was all to prevent first contact. And they slowly started dropping off again around 2009, 2010. And then come 2012 and 2013, they were murdering a couple a day. So what happened was they took out the first 18 or so. And I was so naive, I didn't realize that they were being murdered. And so I went to replace one couple that died with the 2 little beautiful white ones. And the first 18 are part of the Council of 24 that witnessed the coming of Jesus. And Jesus did actually come through my Sananda, Master Sananda rabbit, the presence of Jesus, and visit me for 3 weeks. His presence filled up the whole neighborhood, and we talked for 3 weeks. We didn't know each other very well, so not much was said. But and that rabbit was murdered, but I didn't realize it at the time either. So because of that, I replaced 2 of them with the 2 precious white ones that were smaller and absolutely gorgeous. And but at that time, the targeting, the harassment, and the attacks to my house were at Holocaust level and becoming at Holocaust level. So I had the pulse weapons going on, and it was horrendous. I was being attacked. My soul complex was being fragmented. My soul fragments were all over the house. There were billions of them, like chips, energetically all over the place. So there was so much weaponry going on that I had always gotten my pets neutered, and the medical records exist, both in Colorado, both in Boulder, as well as other states that I've lived in. But at that point, there was so much weaponry going on that I was petrified to take these 2 to get them neutered. And I was petrified because they were so small and fragile that the operations would weaken them and they wouldn't be able to withstand the covert and galactic harassment that was going on in the house. And I didn't want to lose them, so I was shaking so badly. And I knew I needed to get him fixed, and I was absolutely petrified to do so. So that's why they multiplied. I did have, of course, a 750 square foot cement garage on top of which the house sat. So there's another the house itself was 700 square foot. And they lied about this in the press. The whole thing was a hit job. But so that's what happened. And so they multiplied, and I always kept the house clean. I had, a girlfriend that was a massage therapist. I paid her for a couple of years to come every couple of months to clean, and I'd make her dinner. So I kept on top of it, and I spent hours a day cleaning my place. I had some friends over, so I have witnesses. But these attacks and the break-ins to my place and the harassment of the Black Ops military, Swami Trivelasanan and the King of Swords, and their gang stalkers was so heavy that I couldn't keep up with it anymore. And so this escalated into a full-blown Holocaust, and they multiplied. When they were attacking the rabbits in the earlier part of the decade, it's very, very just difficult to talk about, but they attacked them and they injured them very badly, and I couldn't leave them downstairs. I needed to watch over them, so that's why I had a few of them upstairs, and that's how they ended up multiplying both upstairs and downstairs. So there was weaponry, constant harassment. These pulse weapons were going on all day long, all night long. I had constant psychic harassment. Rochelle Corey was attacking me from Casper, Wyoming. She's a trance channel, a very evil, dark witch. She was attacking me in the middle of the night and causing my legs to cramp up. And it was just nonstop physical harassment, technological harassment, psychic harassment, attacks to my pets, injuries to my pets, and death, and threats to my life. The King of Swords threatened me over the phone to put me in jail for the keyway. But he was the one that was, a tactic, a narcissistic war tactic to frame the victim. He had been harassing me since 2009, and though I hoped that he would take me to Agartha for cosmic peace, and if anyone was smart and astute enough to ascertain how important I was, that first contact with me would result in cosmic peace immediately, they would have jumped to do it. I never harassed him. I just hoped that he would take me. And in about 2013 or so, I realized that he was the second Antichrist. The Arcturians told me Swami Chinavasananda was the first one. I wrote a letter to The Hague. I had the police over there because I knew I was being surveilled. All my friends were psychic, but they weren't talking about what I was going through. And I know that they were witnessing it. I know now that the entire community, including my friends and the system itself, were all threatened. They are extraordinarily aggressive, violent, organized, and serial killers. Even Rama Berkowitz called them a serial killer over the telephone. And they threatened the entire community, the entire area, into not speaking and keeping the whole thing, not reporting any crimes, not reporting the crime, and being hush-hush and secrecy about it. And they've been doing it for the last 10 years. Even the press, after the fake case that they paid and threatened the system to create on me over their crimes, their hit job, wanted to report the truth, but they keep getting threatened by the King of Swords. And then he laces it with bribes and trafficking. They've been doing this all over the planet to prevent first contact, the support for first contact, research on the new Earth, and to prevent people from realizing how genuine the peace prophecies are, and to prevent them from researching the peace prophecies and the new Earth and the new age and what I'm working on how I tied it all together. So I put the divine plan together in my house in Colorado. Like I've mentioned before, with everything that I've learned, with all the teachers I've had, with the animal kingdom, the cosmic hierarchy, everywhere, everything that I've learned in this lifetime, my enlightenment from previous lifetimes. So it's the divine plan that Ashtar and Admiral Saint Germain has. Admiral Saint Germain, of course, is compromised. He's heading the reptilian takeover and is the head reptilian general. But he did put it together, so he does understand it. So we all have the Sacred Cross of Governance, and Saint Germain and I came up with that. So I got another threat in May of 2013. I confronted Rama, and I was too nice about the whole situation, but I didn't know how to deal with it, in an email, and told him that the King of Swords was the second Antichrist, Swami Chinavasananda was the first one, and I made a mistake about the third one, which I will correct later, after I'm in Agartha. And they returned it back with another threat from the King of Swords. And I was being threatened all day long, telepathically as well. He was always threatening to put me in jail for the first time. And he threatened me with a visit from Homeland Security. Well, that was 4 months almost to the day of the catastrophic Colorado flood that they caused, a man-made flood. Everybody in the area knew it. It was a highly political situation, this flood. And it was orchestrated to take the Shekinah out of the area and, to neutralize and debilitate me. To prevent the new earth and to prevent forced contact and support for the new earth and to smear me to death and to drive me into the system, which I've never been in before. And it took that much power, that much dark power to drive me into the criminal and mental systems and into homelessness. I had never been homeless before. I came from a very well-to-do family. And, I had become a spiritual healer with my own healing practice and internationally published in the Sedona Journal of Emergence and an electronic newsletter, and was writing 2 books, a couple of books, and I've just this has never happened to me before. So it took that much power to do these things to me. Again, so the Arcturians told me that Swami Chidravasananda was the Antichrist. I realized the King of Swords was the second Antichrist, and at some point later, Archangel Michael confirmed that. And when Donna Wilson from Massac, New York, who's a manager at CPS, who is a child trafficker and a gang stalker, I think, for Swami Chidravasananda, infiltrated my Facebook site and pretended to be a supporter, but was the third Antichrist, the beast of the earth. Archangel Michael confirmed again that I had all 3 Antichrists. Together in astrophotography, which showed up on my camera numerous times, in 2016, the combination of their energies is a third-dimensional black metal triangle, and that showed up in my photographs. So, with regards to my dead rabbits in the freezer downstairs and some dead babies in the couch, well, the Agarthans, I was in touch, communicating with the Agarthans. Obviously, they're part of the divine plan, and they knew the divine plan. They knew I had made a commitment, since I hadn't had much of a chance to get my grad degree, and I made a commitment to do that in Agarthan. They know the whole divine plan, and I worked with them on it. So what happened was they were multiplying, obviously, and I did not have control of the situation, although Art flew a homeless friend of his out named Max, I think his last name is Eprin, in July of 2013 to help me clean, because I wanted to get on top of it and separate the males from the females and put them all in the garage and clean. I wanted to clean the garage, make it immaculate, and keep the upper house completely immaculate like I had always had. And we flew him out for a month, but he got attacked with covert harassment by the King of Swords, Swami Chidravasananda, and after 48 hours, he got completely compromised. And that is how quick he gets to people. These guys get to people. And I knew I needed to get the cops out there, but they had destroyed the house. They had orchestrated the whole thing, and telepathically I heard Swami Chidravasananda say, "Don't let her clean the house so we can frame her for animal cruelty." This was a military operation, hit job, Black Ops military operation. They orchestrated everything. As many of you know around the planet, they analyze people's strengths and weaknesses. It takes 5 minutes to do so. And they launch attacks, one attack after another. They're highly aggressive. They're very physical. They threaten. They murder. If you take a bribe, or if if you compromise yourself to their seduction, they will take you out. They threaten your family. They threaten your businesses. Somebody that I was becoming friends with, who had a career as food and beverage director for a very famous hotel chain, was former military, and had led 100 church conventions, and had invited me to open up a church with him. The King of Swords telepathically threatened him not to speak to me, otherwise they would kill him. And one afternoon they took his apartment and his disability away from him. And he was on kidney dialysis. Art Kelly got attacked. Ron Fugel got attacked. Joe Crane got compromised. King of Swords told him, to replace me, the Shekinah. I was the Shekinah, and I was the one that was acknowledged and spoken about in his May 2013 visit by 8 angels that acknowledged me as Shekinah. And Jill lied about it. Jill has been compromised for about 10 years or so. And they got him to try to replace me with Lakshmi. They've been trying to get the Vatican to replace me with Lakshmi. The King of Swords picked up somebody named Bela Capozzi, who's a Lakshmi incarnation, in Florida, and he abducted a tremendous amount of soul complex and light from me. I'm the Queen of Light. And actually, from what I saw about 10 years ago, me and Jesus have the same amount of light. And I was told that I anchored the most light in cosmic history in a workshop that I did about 10 years ago. So he abducted my light, an enormous amount of light and soul complex for me, and attached it to Bela Capozzi, and for a couple of years, presented her to Congress as being the Shekinah. So there's this constant false prophet paradigm going on, and now they're using the same things. I know Swami Chivalasananda on other planets in the cosmos has used Lakshmi and the dark aspects of Jesus, or the weakness in the Jesus personality in the physical plane, as decoys to peace, to cosmic and global peace. And it has led to getting people to give their power away, which is what's happening right now, and to reptilian holocaust once that power is given away. And she does the same thing over and over and over and over again. So with the pets multiplying and me being petrified to take them to the vet, they naturally had litters in the couch because it was a comfy place. But, I'm sure the babies, they didn't have, the cushioning in there was a little too malleable probably to receive the nursing of the mother. So that's what I'm guessing. And that's why some of them passed. And the Agarthan, sorry, that's why I brought it up, offered graciously to bring my rabbits back. And that's why I put them in the freezer. So it was a combination of the Agarthans graciously offering to reconstitute them, or the soil was incredibly, how can I say, it was difficult to dig a hole in. So I really did not feel comfortable doing that. at the time, and I was extraordinarily traumatized that my children, because I was not in a state of battle like I am now. I was just in a state, I'm heavily in love with the animal kingdom and heavily in love with my pets. And they were quite happy with me. And, these were my children that were being murdered, and they were being murdered prematurely. So I was in a heavy state of trauma, and I wasn't ready to put them in the backyard. And like I said, the soil wasn't conducive to digging. So those were the 3 reasons why they're in the freezer. And that's why they're in the couch. That's it. So it was the Holocaust, akin to, like I've written in my reports, the opening scene to the movie Red with Bruce Willis. And it was all to prevent me from making first contact, to prevent the new earth, to prevent cosmic peace. And of course, they acknowledge this all of the time. I was being sexually harassed. I was being abducted. I had alien abductions going on. At one point, I had triangular markings on my thigh, a huge triangle on my thigh, red markings, and I had a raised triangle about 1/2 inch on, I think, my right temple, which freaked me out and which was extremely irritating. So I screamed, and finally that went away, and I had a scab there. But the King of Swords, I was being sexually harassed, and they were just prostituting me. And, I've been molested a number of times in my life. And I didn't, I didn't give it a lot of thought, but I didn't quite understand why this was happening. And I do know now that Swami Chittavasananda and possibly the reptilians were always influencing my environment and the people. And being a targeted individual for the last 20 years, so I do know that the reptilians have been abducting me for quite a long time. And I do know I was kidnapped when I was about 5 by the King of Swords, and my initial body was quite gorgeous. And he replaced me with a less attractive body to prevent a lot of attention from the public. So this has been orchestrated for a long time. And I had dreams with the King of Swords in it, with me being kidnapped when I was younger. So, you know how the reptilians are in the Dark Illuminati. They scan, and they have technology, and they scan psychically, and with their technology, the light beings, the great beings who are doing a lot of peace work, and they go after